But the Diddy doc. Let's get to the Diddy doc. It took me a while to get through it. I wasn't one of the first people to kind of run through it. I'm not a big time binger like that nowadays. I kind of like to wait and let the landscape shape first. Let everybody, all the trends, the people, trend stillers. That's what I like to call them. The people that love to still the trending topics and the people that like to be first when it comes to a story or a topic in general. I let those guys rock. Let them rock. Let you guys do your shit. I don't like to move to anybody's rhythm. I like to move to my own rhythm. I like to move to the beat of my own drum. So I finally got a chance to get around to watching the rest of the documentary, the last two episodes. The first two I got to see yesterday, and I wanted to wait and see the last two today, and I finally got to see them. And, it was infuriating. It was just as infuriating as the first two episodes. It was like weird for me, man. It was like, yo, I had a legit range of emotions watching this documentary because kind of like it was like a stroll down memory lane. It was a peer down, your childhood almost. Puff was such a big part of our childhood, as far as our teenage years are concerned. You know what I'm saying? Bad Boy was taking off around that time. We was outside. I know I've been outside a lot. My formative years on this planet, I was outside. That's all I did was hang out outside, play with my friends, or did video games. That's all I fucking did for a good portion of my life. And being outside allowed you to get entangled in what, you know, took us all by storm, and that's hip hop. It's culture. Hip hop took us all by storm, whether it was dancing, whether it was rapping, whether it was graffiti, whether it was, the other elements. It was all about that. And in saying that, it was all about hip hop. And saying that, you followed all of these great cultural icons as their careers began. I always loved being a part of the millennial generation because we're the last great generation. I truly believe that. We're the only generation who actually understands the old world and the new world. It's us. We are the last true generation who understands what it was like to dub a fucking cassette tape, listening to your radio station, your local radio station. If you wanted to get your favorite single, you couldn't stream it. You couldn't search it on the internet because it didn't exist. The radio had your favorite single, and the way you wanted to get that single is you had to dub it off the radio. I know because I used to do it. I'm that old now. Proud of it too, because with that comes an experience you can't fucking buy. You have to live it, breathe it, experience it, and I did. So it's amazing to see the trajectory, the growth, and everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to all of these cultural icons of the past who became what they are today, cultural icons. So when I say that is the Diddy's, the Jay-Z's, the Nas's, the any big cultural icon, Wu-Tang, whatever, they all came from the fucking 90s. That's the point. All of these are cultural icons now. Then they were new artists, new brands, new businesses. They were brand new then. So to see where they ultimately grew, how they became so big, becoming gatekeepers and shifting the culture the way they did was incredible. But not to get off topic with Puff, it was disappointing because it was like, yo, these guys were superheroes to us. I named some of them already. Puff was one of those. To me, speaking for myself, when I wanted to start my own group, my own crew, my own quote unquote label with my friends, my local friends, 25 years ago almost now. Damn, it's that almost that long ago. A lot of the blueprint was Puff and the Dame Dashes of the world, those motivational go-getters. This is far before Wallow hit the internets, people. It was we was getting our motivation from right or wrong. We was getting our motivations from the likes of Jay-Z's and the likes of Dame Dash and the likes of Puff. Because nobody was doing it like that. They were truly trendsetters in their own right. You could throw Jermaine Dupri in there on the Atlanta side, to be fair. Jermaine Dupri was doing it way early, and I was a Crisscross fan, so that's another topic in itself. But this was essential back then, you know. So seeing ultimately what Puff was like a superhero to us, man. It was a superhero to me because it was a model that you wanted to live by. It was a model that you wanted to follow. It was a blueprint, at least the way he thought, of, yo, you could work hard, you could become this business mogul, this black business entrepreneur, this mogul who could do and as he pleased, you know, and just become this huge cultural figure. That was Puff, man. Puff made hip hop fashionable. He helped make it fashionable, without a doubt. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Dapper Dan did the streets. You know, he made hip hop culture fashionable in the streets through his culture and urban fashion and all of that. But Puff, as far as the music business is concerned, definitely contributed to the way he made fucking hip hop ghetto fabulous. That's Puff. You got to give him that. And the documentary explained a lot of that. But I am getting on a tangent. What I really want to talk about with Puff is that a lot of the stuff ultimately that we heard with Puff throughout the documentary, all 4 episodes, is a continuation of who he has always been. It's really interesting to see how things fell apart for him, because it falls apart the same way. It fell apart the same way how it falls apart for all these types of figures like him. White, black, orange, green, doesn't matter what the fuck your orientation is, your color. The same pattern is always prevalent with these types of predators. And it was interesting to see that. A big part of his demise is just the fact that he just straight up blew people off. He got off at, you know, being a deadbeat when it came to paying his debts, his tabs with people, friends and business associates that helped him along the way. He got off at just not paying them. Victims, you name it. Whoever fell into that bucket of people he didn't give a fuck about, as far as people he didn't respect, you didn't get paid. Business world, freak offs, it didn't fucking matter. Music business, if he felt that he wanted to slight you and not pay you, even though he knew he owed you, he would do it anyway. He got to that point. You ripping off your childhood friend who helped start Bad Boy with you. You gave him 25%, then to later muscle him out of the 25%. Like Suge Knight muscle fucking Vanilla Ice out of percentages of his fucking single Ice Baby. You did the same shit to your friend. Like, the dude didn't care, man. Once he got away with that bullshit, that party that he overhyped when he was 19, 20 years old, when he had that foundation party that he did up in Harlem, and he had Heavy D co-sponsoring it, and the whole 9. Listen, speaking as someone who promoted parties in a previous life as a young guy, actually around that same age, 19, 20, I was throwing parties with my friends. You know what? You are responsible. If you over promote, you have to know that you need the adequate amount of security. And if you don't, then you have a problem. We've run into problems like that. Hell, I'm guilty of that. We've over promoted before. And predictably, the outcome was violent. Now, granted, fortunate for us in our situation, talk about me and my crew, or my crew and I at the time, like I said, we threw parties. Nobody died. But somebody got fucked up and cops came and it was a whole ordeal. And it was a learning situation that we carried on from that situation where it was like, yeah, we definitely have to be accountable, more accountable, because this could have been even worse. And with Puff's situation, it was the first time where he actually got away with murder. You know what I mean? There was so many people that died from that incident, and I forgot how many people died in that incident. They said it was like 9 fucking people, not counting the people that were injured. And he got off on that. Hell, I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head as to how many people died during Travis Scott's event, that last event he had with, the big old event thing, festival thing that Travis Scott used to do. He don't do anymore because people died last time. People got trampled, unfortunately. But I don't even think 9 people died at his concert. He had, God, who knows, 100,000 people maybe. So the fact that Puff killed more people at his party and got away with it unscathed is interesting. It was just a prelude into what we could expect from him later on in his life. The more stuff he got away with, the more outrageous things he tried, and the more outrageous things he felt that he can get away with over time. And he did. He used to take guys, he was dirty macking, trying to steal guys, girls and shit. Industry guys too. Street niggas. He didn't care. Listen, not for nothing. Puff wasn't a street nigga, but he was definitely ballsy. When he wanted something, he went and got it no matter what. Even if he knew it might have been his ass, he still went for it. He had the audacity, man. That's one thing I give him credit for. That motherfucker, that piece of shit, had the audacity to do anything. And that's what was a part of his success and what made him unique, his audacity. He just had the audacity to do shit. And one of those things was just going after dirty macking and going after guys, girls. You can't go after street niggas, girls. That's a rule. As someone who used to hang and frequent around in those areas, talking about the streets, that's a rule. You don't mess with dudes, chicks, because shit can get ugly for you. But he didn't care. One of his biggest dirty macking victims was Albie Shore. Albie Shore's girl, man, had her in the video, Kim Porter, everything. It's his girl. It's his chick. He got a son with her and everything. That's Quincy's dad, by the way, if you don't know. And you later learn out, like, man, this is just Puff's MO, it's a control thing. And these predators, that's what they do. They seek out and they control. They seek out, destroy, and control. And he seeked out and got what he wanted in Kim Porter. And then the pattern continues on with Justin's mom, Misa, who's a central part to a lot of why this documentary was made, in my opinion. And I'll get down the rabbit hole in a second. It's going to take me there. Listen, this is why I had to put this on the podcast, because this is like the fucking Marvel multiverse. This Puff situation and 50 Cent, I'll get to him later. This is what I talk about, the wormhole and going down the rabbit hole. This is like a multiverse. There's layers to this shit, dog. It's not just about this documentary. The documentary has an origin story. It's out because of a reason, because 50 Cent don't like this dude. They have a history. And Misa's tied to that history. Justin's mom's tied to that history. It was interesting to know that Eric Sherman from EP&D dated Misa first. That was his chick first. Then later they became friends or whatnot, but they was, off and on dating. Puff, of course, knowing EPMD, knowing Eric Sherman, wanting to do some business with him, still found it his business to go after his former squeeze, just to say he got her. Now he got her in video shoots and all of this other stuff. Yo, dude moved nasty. He moved nasty. I'm surprised somebody didn't break his shit a long time ago. Like he was just allowed to be an habitual line stepper. And I think a part of that is that Puff always put himself in a power position. He always was a mover and shaker. In the beginning, he wasn't. He worked his way up into that, getting through Uptown Records with, the late Andre Harrell, the whole nine. I'm not going to break down a whole story, but, he worked his ass off to get to the position that he was in, you know? He had a whole plan from the beginning and how he wanted to be successful. He executed that plan. But that plan became treacherous as he began to get away with shit. He began to do more and more. He was like, fuck it, why not? If I can get away with this, why couldn't I get away with that? And this and that. And that's just how these guys work. It's a fucking pattern. It is a pattern with these predators. Predators like Puff, predators like Harvey Weinstein, or whoever you want to put in that bucket. Treat people like shit. Take advantage of them. Don't pay them. So, let's get around to, Misa's involvement. Justin's mom. So he met her obviously through Eric Sherman, who Eric Sherman used to date. Now he, has a relationship with her. Justin's born, the whole nine. Justin, which is crazy because the Godfather became the guy that he stiffed out of 25%, his boy. That was the Godfather of Justin, right? And is the Godfather still, not sure of that, but you had her involved. But, fast forward later on, I'm going to get 50 involved in this just so we get back to the documentary in a second. 50's involvement is through Misa. So 50 a long time ago, this is pre Get Rich or Die Trying. This is like, the days of him once he got out of Sony Records, Power, the Dollar, all this stuff. And he was trying to get signed by Puff at one point, and Puff reluctantly declined. Or how the story goes, 50 tells this story. And, it didn't go as planned, and 50 went out, and, that's when the epic mixtape run kind of started because he didn't sign with Bad Boy. But from that point on, he kind of had a salty relationship with Puff. I guess the guy rubbed him the wrong way. He just didn't like the way he moved, really. Like, sometimes you meet somebody and you just like, I don't know, something ain't right about this dude. And you got to understand, 98 or 99, whichever year, I can't remember, he had that meeting with Puff. Puff is Puff. Puff, even at that time, was still Diddy. Like, he was still, one of the top figures in the industry at the time. Big had just passed away or something like that. So Puff is just kind of trying to stay away from having a polarizing figure like a 50 Cent on his label. And, I get it, especially going through all the gang shit especially all the gang shit we later found out about with Puff and his involvement with the Crips and different chapters of the Crips, different sections of the Crips, and, contributing to the death of Tupac Shakur. Let me get to that in a second. But, he definitely was involved with a lot of things. And what definitely the documentary showed, if you didn't follow him throughout his career like I did, I was fortunate enough because, again, I'm old enough to have followed him through a lot of this stuff. A lot of this stuff the documentary talked about, we had already heard about. We had already heard about this stuff. But A lot of people talked in the shadows, the former bodyguards and things like that. You didn't hear a lot of people talk about these things. There wasn't a lot of stuff to go off of to prove that he was doing a lot of these things, ripping people off for their money and things like that. We would just hear it through the grapevine a lot of the times throughout the years, decades. Now the documentary kind of just broke those things down in just such an artful way for those who didn't know about this stuff. You got to understand the black community, which we follow. If me, of course, I'm a part of that. We know a lot of this stuff. The general public that watched this documentary didn't know half of this shit that they seen. All they know about is you know, the Puff Daddy that was in the goddamn video with Ben Stiller. Papa Puff, Puff Daddy, Puff Daddy that's in front of fucking Ellen DeGeneres. That's what the public knows. That's the Diddy that the public knows. They don't know shoot up the club Diddy. They don't know uh you know slap his girl up Diddy. They don't know all of this other version of him. They don't know this other version of him. They only know the version they see on camera or the version they see at, occasional parties, not the freak offs, just the parties. That's the only version they see. So the mass general public who watch Netflix, white America or whatever kind of America you want to see, and then you got to remember, this is international too. This is the number one documentary or number one program rated even in the UK and in the US right now. So you're getting a brand new, fresh audience of people who are now seeing the type of slime ball you've been for decades. There's generations now who get to see the type of shit you've done to all of your artists. Every single artist he's wronged. I don't know if he's not wronged one of his artists. Maybe Jazzy. And Jazzy was toward the end. So all his relationships he ruined. What he did with Big was disgusting, by the way. Big dies and that's supposed to be your man. And you don't cover the bill for his fucking funeral, you piece of shit. Like, it was just so many things that I watched during that documentary that just enraged me because, listen, I remember when the news spread when Biggie got passed away on MTV News. Yeah, we watched MTV News at the time. I remember the time with Tupac Shakur passed away and it was, breaking news on MTV. And, it was sad. I remember being sad about it because it was something we never seen before. This was the first time we had major recording artists, rappers, if you want to call them that or whatever, pass away due to violence. Now, of course, 15, 20 years later, that becomes the norm. But back then, we never seen that before. It was brand new to us. And these are our favorite artists taken away from us in a blink of an eye. So to see that happen and to then learn how it could have all been prevented, number one, and two, who was fucking the Pied Piper of it all, the person that was orchestrating it all, it was Diddy. It was Diddy all along. We've always suspected his role in the death of Tupac Shakur. Let's be real. We always have. Again, those of us who's followed along this path, this story of Diddy throughout the 90s all the way until today, present time, we have seen it all. Me, talking about me. I'm a part of we. We've seen it. So to see all of these pieces, all of these, these little tidbits come together in such an artful way, in such a way that's easy to see and easy to digest, as far as how the documentary put it together, it was It's like, damn, man, if this was brought up on deposition, it's just hard to fucking argue. It's you, man. It's like a mirror. They put a mirror up against him, up against itself, and say, hey, this has been the shitty human being you've been in your entire life, the people you've wronged. Yeah, episode 2 just was laid out in a way that was just so black and white to me that it enraged me. I didn't expect to have that kind of emotion. It was like an emotion of sadness, like I almost wanted to cry, but it was also a weird emotion of anger that I had toward Diddy because I was sitting on my couch watching this and saying, "Oh my God, you motherfucker. You are responsible for the death of Tupac Shakur." I mean, I don't even think it's the debate at this point. It's not. His involvement, they dug in so deep and laid it out so clearly as far as his involvement with the Crips, the figures involved, the players that were involved, and then their accounts of the situation. Like, the dude, man, D Keefe or whatever his name was, that was a part of the whole situation. And man, the way he described that night that they shot Tupac, because I hadn't heard that before, I don't think. But the way he described that night, all the way up until when they shot him and how the cops came and they kind of were still around and it kind of tripped, like every single detail, it was just almost, it was so hard to not believe it. You know what I'm saying? It was like as if he was actually there. And and then to get around to why he's actually talking. The whole point is this: everyone is talking because Diddy stiffed everyone out on the money he owed them. That's the crazy part of the whole story. If he gave a damn about anyone other than himself, because he's a narcissist, his narcissism ultimately was the thing that brought him down. Narcissism in general is what ultimately brings down these types of monsters. And it happened to him. He didn't want to pay Cassie. He didn't want to pay Little Rod. He didn't want to pay D Keefe or whatever, Keefe in the jail, the Crip in the jail. He didn't want to pay anybody. That's why he is where he is, and that's why he deserves to be where he is. He's lucky to get the time he got. Yeah, the pettiness between him and 50 Cent is just going on this epic, legendary level to the point where it's almost tit for tat between them who gets the edge on with each side. First, it began with him not signing 50. Then later on, 50 goes on to date Misa, Justin's mom, and learns a lot about Diddy in his former life. I think Justin's mom told 50 a lot of Diddy's dirty laundry. And then once that happened, Diddy is, you know, a person that 50 just looks at a lot more differently, a lot, and just a lot less favorably. He actually, the more he learns, the less he respects Diddy. So then the relationship starts to sour over time. And then once Diddy learned about him, smashing his baby moms, like the documentary says, Diddy may smile and do all the, hey, let's figure it out type of thing, but he doesn't forget. And it's ironic that 50's later baby mom, Sire's mom, is a former Diddy escort. So Diddy got the upper edge again. And then now with the documentary, 50 has the upper edge again. This petty relationship may go on forever.